single empire but a balance of powerful species, ancient, advanced, and proud. They believed war was an art they had perfected long ago. Humans joined the Concord late. They arrived in fragile ships made of layered alloys instead of living crystal or adaptive metal. Their technology looked crude. Their bodies were soft. Their lifespans were short. The elder species watched Earth from a distance and laughed. "They burn their own sky," said Archon Viral of the Karth Dominion, his voice echoing through the council hall. "They fight each other endlessly. Why invite them?" "They adapt quickly," replied Councillor Shine of the Luminari, her glowing form pulsing gently. "Too quickly." The Concord voted anyway. Humanity was admitted as a minor observer species. No military authority, no vote in high matters. Just a courtesy seat. Ambassador Elena Cross stood alone on the circular platform of the council hall, surrounded by beings that dwarfed her in size and age. She kept her hands folded behind her back, spine straight. "We are honored," she said calmly. "We only wish to learn." The elders dismissed her words as harmless. That was their first mistake. Beyond Concord space, something ancient stirred. The Vorkel swarm, a devouring civilization that consumed stars and stripped galaxies bare, had returned from the void. Entire systems vanished without warning. Fleets were torn apart like dust. The Concord mobilized. They did not call humanity. Humans were too new, too weak, too untested. When the swarm struck the outer Karth border, the Concord fleets met them in open space, confident in superior numbers and ancient weapons. They were annihilated. The swarm did not fight like any enemy before. It learned in real time. It sacrificed millions to understand a single weapon. It adapted faster than the Concord could react. Within months, 3 major powers collapsed. Refugees flooded inward. Panic spread across the galaxy. Still, no one asked humanity for help. On Earth, human leaders watched the feeds in silence. Admiral Marcus Hale turned away from the holographic display of burning star systems. "They don't understand what they're facing," he said quietly. President Amina Rahman nodded. "And they don't understand us either. Do we intervene?" She paused. "Not yet." Part 2, When Giants Fall. The Vorkel reached the Luminari core worlds next. The Luminari had no fleets. They had believed diplomacy eternal. Their cities of light shattered in silence as the swarm harvested their suns. For the first time in history, the Galactic Concord issued a total distress call. The signal reached Earth. Ambassador Elena Cross stood again in the council hall, this time surrounded by empty seats and damaged structures. Archon Viral's once proud form flickered on a broken projection. "We request assistance," he said. Elena did not answer immediately. "You ignored us," she said calmly. "You denied us defense treaties. You dismissed our warnings." Viral bowed his massive head. "We were wrong." A murmur spread through the remaining counselors. Elena tapped her wrist. "Admiral Hale," she said. "They're ready." The lights dimmed. A new hologram appeared, human fleet formations stretching across multiple star systems. The aliens stared in stunned silence. "We did not build one fleet," Elena said. "We built many. Independent, modular, redundant." Shine's light flickered rapidly. "Why hide this?" "Because the galaxy punishes strength it doesn't control," Elena replied. Humanity entered the war. Not with grand armadas, but with precision. Human ships moved differently. They did not form rigid battle lines. They split, scattered, regrouped. Their weapons were not the most powerful, but they were unpredictable. At the Battle of Kelp Prime, a single human task force faced a Vorkel Hive fleet 3 times its size. The swarm adapted within minutes. Then humans changed tactics. They detonated false reactor signatures, lured the swarm into gravity traps, collapsed a moon into the battlefield. The Vorkel fleet died screaming. Across the galaxy, alien commanders watched in disbelief. "They learn faster than the swarm," one whispered. "No," another said. "They planned for this." Part 3, Minds Sharper Than Claws. The swarm responded. It stopped attacking human fleets. Instead, it targeted human colonies. Entire planets were assaulted at once. The galaxy waited for humanity to break. Earth did not evacuate. They fortified. Human worlds became nightmares for invaders. Cities retreated underground. Civilian populations fought beside soldiers. Artificial intelligences coordinated defenses at speeds no organic mind could match. The swarm adapted again. Humans adapted faster. Captured Vorkel biocores were studied, decoded, and rewritten. Human scientists discovered the swarm was not a hive, but a network of competing intelligences bound by fear. Admiral Hale smiled grimly. Then we don't fight it, he said. We fracture it. Human cyber warfare units launched something the galaxy had never seen, a conceptual virus. Not code. Not energy. An idea. The swarm began to hesitate. Its fleets argued internally. Command signals conflicted. Vorkel ships turned on each other. In the council hall, Shine spoke in awe. They are attacking its thoughts. Elena nodded. Humans have been fighting themselves for all of history. We understand division. Part 4, the line is drawn. The Vorkel adapted once more. It unified. All hesitation vanished. All internal conflict burned away. The swarm aimed directly for Earth. The final fleet was larger than anything recorded. It blotted out stars. The Concorde begged humanity to retreat. President Rahman addressed the galaxy. If Earth falls, she said, we fall together. Humanity made it stand. Every fleet, every weapon, every mind. The solar defense grid activated, an array disguised as civilian infrastructure for centuries. The sun itself was weaponized. As the swarm entered the system, space bent. Light fractured. Human ships emerged from impossible angles. The battle lasted 17 hours. Millions died. But Earth did not fall. When the swarm's core intelligence finally shattered, its scream echoed across hyperspace. Silence followed. Part 5, after the fire. The galaxy reeled. The Concorde was broken, but alive. Human fleets did not occupy territory. They rebuilt it. Elena Cross stood before the council one last time. We do not seek rule, she said. We seek balance. Archon Viral knelt. You were underestimated, he said. We will never make that mistake again. Part 6, the truth revealed. In secret archives, alien historians uncovered the truth. Humanity had never been weak. They had been restrained. Their aggression was controlled. Their intelligence focused. Their violence disciplined. They were not conquerors. They were survivors. Part 7, the last line. Years later, a new civilization reached the stars. They asked about the galaxy's protectors. The answer was always the same. Do not cross humanity, the elders said. They are not the first line of defense. They are the last. And once crossed, there is no return. The first great defeat of the Galactic Concorde did not come with fire. It came with silence. At the edge of Karth Dominion space, a star system went dark. No explosion. No distress signal. Just absence. Sensors showed planets still there, gravity intact. But no energy, no heat, no life. Archon Viral watched the data stream with growing unease. His species had ruled fleets before Earth had learned agriculture. Nothing erased a system without leaving scars. This is impossible, a Karth admiral said. No known weapon. The warning ended as the Vorkel swarm arrived. They did not emerge from hyperspace like normal fleets. Space itself seemed to peel open. Organic ships poured out in numbers that defied logic, each one different, constantly reshaping, adapting. The Karth Armada moved into perfect formation, ancient battle doctrine activating automatically. Fire, Viral commanded. Beams of stellar energy lanced outward. Entire waves of swarm vessels vaporized. The Karth cheered. Then the swarm changed. The next wave twisted, armor reconfiguring mid-flight. Energy dispersed across their hulls. Weapons that had ended wars now barely slowed them. The swarm did not dodge. It absorbed losses, learned, and advanced. Within minutes, Karth battleships were being boarded by living constructs that cut through hulls like flesh. Command ships vanished under swarms of smaller organisms that drilled inward, straight toward reactors. Viral watched centuries of military pride collapse in less than an hour. Retreat, he roared. There was nowhere to retreat to. The Karth Dominion fell in 3 days. The Concorde reeled but still believed this was a single catastrophe, an anomaly. They rushed fleets from other powers, believing unity would solve what pride could not. It did not. At the Luminari core worlds, cities of pure light floated around radiant suns. The Luminari had no warships, only defense matrices older than most civilizations. They believed no one would ever attack them. When the Vorkel arrived, the defense matrices fired once. The swarm adjusted. It surrounded the stars and began to drain them. Luminari worlds dimmed as their suns were consumed, their people screaming across open channels as their light forms destabilized and collapsed. Counselor Shine felt billions of minds extinguish at once. For the first time in recorded galactic history, she wept. Panic flooded the Galactic Concorde. Delegates shouted over one another. Ancient species accused each other of provoking the swarm. Military leaders demanded emergency powers. Religious orders declared the end times. And still no one spoke the word human. On Earth the feeds played uninterrupted. Admiral Marcus Hale stood in a quiet command room, hands clasped behind his back. Around him, analysts tracked every Vorkel movement. "They're not conquering," one officer said. "They're pruning. Removing threats." President Amina Rahman watched the collapse of the luminary suns with a hard expression. "They're testing the galaxy," she said. "And the galaxy is failing." A younger general hesitated. "Madam President, the Concord still hasn't asked for our help." Rahman smiled faintly. "Of course not. Shouldn't we?" "No," she said firmly. "Let them learn." Days later, the Concord issued its first total distress call. The message was raw, unfiltered, broadcast on every known frequency. "Any species, any force. We are facing extinction." The signal reached Earth within minutes. Ambassador Elena Cross stood as her wrist implant chimed. She was already walking toward the council hall. This time the chamber was different. Sections were dark. Seats were empty. The great holographic star map flickered, half of it consumed by spreading voids marked in red. Archon Viral appeared as a damaged projection, his once imposing form scarred by static. "Human representative," he said, voice low. "We request your presence." Elena stepped onto the platform. "You ignored us," she said evenly. "When we warned you about adaptive threats. When we asked for shared intelligence. When we requested mutual defense." Viral did not argue. "We were arrogant," he admitted. "We believed age meant superiority." Shine's weakened light pulsed beside him. "We believed violence beneath us." Elena met their gazes. "And now?" Viral bowed, fully formally. A gesture never before offered to a younger species. "Now," he said, "we ask humanity to stand with us." Silence filled the chamber. Elena raised her wrist. "Admiral Hale," she said calmly. "They're ready." The lights dimmed. The star map shifted. Human fleets appeared, not one but dozens hidden across neutral space, asteroid belts and unclaimed systems. Ships of varied design, purpose-built, modular, constantly moving. Alien delegates stared. You hid this," a surviving counselor whispered. "We didn't hide," Elena replied. "You never looked." She gestured at the map. "These are not conquest fleets. They are response fleets. Each one autonomous. Each one capable of independent strategy." Shine's voice trembled. "How long have you prepared for this?" Elena answered without pride. "Our entire history." Outside the council hall, the galaxy burned. And for the first time, the elders felt hope. And fear. The galaxy expected humanity to fight like everyone else. They expected lines of ships, great duels of firepower, heroic last stands. That was how wars had always been fought among the elder species. Power met power and the stronger survived. Humanity did none of that. When the first human fleets engaged the Vorkel swarm, observers were confused. The ships did not advance together. They scattered, vanishing into debris fields, asteroid shadows, even the gravity wells of dying stars. "This is disorder," a Concord tactician said. "They will be isolated and destroyed." Admiral Marcus Hale watched the same feed and shook his head. "No," he said softly. "This is hunting." At Kelt Prime, a mining system abandoned decades earlier, a Vorkel hive fleet arrived expecting easy consumption. The system appeared undefended. Then human drones activated. Thousands of tiny machines burst from asteroids, each broadcasting false signatures, reactors, life signs, weapon locks. The swarm reacted instantly, splitting its formation to consume every target. That was the point. Human strike ships emerged from concealment and attacked from dozens of vectors. Missiles curved unpredictably, guided not by central control but by adaptive local AIs that learned the swarm's behavior in seconds. The Vorkel adapted, reshaping armor, rerouting internal organs, altering formation. Humans changed again. They detonated old mining charges, collapsing an entire asteroid belt inward. Gravitational chaos tore swarm vessels apart, forcing them to sacrifice hundreds to escape. Within 20 minutes, the hive fleet was gone. Destroyed by a force half its size. Across Concord space, similar battles played out. Humans never fought the same way twice. Every engagement was different, forcing the swarm to relearn endlessly. But the Vorkel was not mindless. It learned something else. Humanity was not defending Concord worlds. They were defending their own. Without warning, the swarm bypassed frontline systems and plunged into human-controlled space. Entire hive fleets targeted colonies, supply hubs, and civilian worlds. The galaxy watched, waiting for humanity to beg for help. They did not. On New Jakarta, orbital alarms screamed as organic ships filled the sky. Civilians did not flee in panic. They followed drills practiced for generations. Cities folded inward, massive structures retracting underground. Shields rose from planetary crusts. The surface became a battlefield designed to kill invaders. Human civilians took up arms beside soldiers. Factories became fortresses. Hospitals doubled as command centers. Children were evacuated not to space, but deeper underground, protected by layers of rock and magnetic shielding. The swarm landed. It was met by coordinated chaos. Autonomous turrets adjusted fire mid-burst. Infantry squads fought in flexible units, retreating, flanking, counterattacking without waiting for orders. Above it all, artificial intelligences processed millions of data points, updating tactics every second. The swarm adapted. Humanity adapted faster. Captured Vorkel organisms were not destroyed. They were studied. In underground labs, scientists dissected bioships still twitching with life. Patterns emerged: communication pulses, command hierarchies, feedback loops. Dr. Yara Chen, lead xenoneurologist, stared at the data in disbelief. "This isn't a hive mind," she said. "It's a coalition." "What?" an officer asked. "Independent intelligences bound together by survival pressure. They obey because disobedience means death." The implications were staggering. Admiral Hale was briefed within minutes. "If that's true," he said slowly, "then fear holds them together." Human cyber warfare units went to work. They did not attack Vorkel code or biology. They attacked assumptions. A conceptual virus was created, not instructions, not commands, but conflicting survival predictions. Signals were injected suggesting betrayal, false threat assessments, impossible casualty projections. The swarm began to hesitate. Hive fleets slowed. Formations fractured. Vorkel ships opened fire on each other, each believing the other a liability. Across the galaxy, Concord observers watched in horror and awe. "They are attacking its mind," Shine whispered. Elena Cross stood beside her. "Humans have been fighting themselves for all of history," Elena said. "Civil wars. Ideologies. Competing truths. We understand how fear fractures unity." The swarm felt something new. Doubt. In desperation, it changed strategy again. All scattered intelligences were forced into alignment. Billions of individual wills burned away as a single dominant core asserted control. The galaxy felt it happen, a psychic scream rippling through hyperspace. The swarm was now unified. Stronger. Faster. Focused. And it chose its target. Admiral Hale stared at the projection of the incoming fleet, larger than anything before, a living wall of destruction. President Rahman joined him in silence. "They're coming for our heart," she said. Hale nodded. "Good," he replied. "That's where we're strongest." Humanity did not evacuate. They prepared. Because every human knew one truth the galaxy was only beginning to learn. You could outgun humans. You could outnumber humans. But once they understood you, you had already lost. The moment the Vorkel unified, the galaxy felt it. Hyperspace trembled. Long-range sensors screamed with readings that made no sense. Mass without limit, energy signatures folding in on themselves, a presence so vast it distorted probability itself. At the center of it all was one destination: Sol. The news spread faster than light through panic channels. Entire civilizations froze, realizing what the swarm intended. Earth was not just another human world. It was their origin, their symbol, their psychological core. If Earth fell, humanity would fracture, or so the galaxy believed. The Galactic Concord issued desperate pleas. "Withdraw your fleets," Archon Viral urged in a broken transmission. "Preserve your species. We will delay them." President Amina Rahman stood before a global broadcast, her face calm but hard. "No," she said. "We don't run from extinction events. We end them." Behind her, the solar system awakened. What the galaxy had seen of human power was only the surface. Orbital platforms that had once monitored weather and trade lanes reconfigured, armor plates sliding into place. Civilian satellites revealed hidden weapon arrays. Old mining installations ignited with stored fusion cores. The solar defense grid, dismissed for centuries as infrastructure, came online. Admiral Marcus Hale took command from the Aegis Deep, a battle station buried within Mercury's mantle. All fleets, he said, voice steady. Execute final posture. Across the system, human ships moved into position. Not a single massive formation, but layers upon layers of overlapping kill zones. Asteroids were repositioned. Comets were nudged onto precise trajectories. The sun itself changed. Massive stellar regulators, built long ago to study solar activity, shifted their alignment. Energy flares were redirected, shaped, focused. The Vorkel arrived. Space split open beyond Pluto, and the swarm poured in like a living storm. Organic hulls shimmered with hardened armor, weapons grown rather than built. The first wave advanced confidently. Then space betrayed them. Gravity wells intensified without warning. Vorkel ships were dragged off course, colliding with one another as human-controlled microsingularities bloomed and collapsed. Human fleets struck. They emerged from behind planets, from the shadows of moons, from inside sensor ghosts planted weeks earlier. Missiles burned with artificial intelligence, altering paths in real time, learning from every hit and miss. The swarm adapted instantly. Armor thickened. Energy dispersal improved. New countermeasures formed. Humanity responded instantly. Weapons shifted frequencies mid-battle. Ships vented decoy heat signatures and vanished behind reflective stealth fields. Entire squadrons sacrificed themselves to draw the swarm into pre-calculated kill corridors. On Earth, civilians watched the sky burn. Cities shook as orbital debris fell like meteors. Sirens wailed, but there was no panic. Humanity had known this moment would come. Underground shelters became command hubs. Engineers rerouted power. Medics treated the wounded while coordinating evacuation routes that changed by the minute. The swarm reached inner orbit. That was when Admiral Hale gave the order no one else in the galaxy would have dared. Activate Helios Protocol. The stellar regulators around the sun aligned fully. A controlled solar flare erupted, not random, not wild, but shaped. A beam of stellar plasma lanced outward, guided by gravitational lenses and magnetic fields. It tore through the swarm's core formation. Organic ships vaporized instantly. Others spiraled, their biology unable to cope with the raw fury of a star. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. "They're weaponizing a sun," Shine whispered. Viral's voice was reverent. "Only a species that lives under one would dare." The swarm screamed, not in sound but in waves of distorted space. It pushed harder, throwing everything forward in a final desperate charge. Human fleets began to fall. Losses mounted. Entire task forces vanished. The sky above Earth glowed red as burning debris entered the atmosphere. For a moment, it seemed even humanity might break. President Rahman stood in the command bunker as reports flooded in. "Admiral," she said quietly, "status?" Hale's voice was tired but unbroken. "We're holding." "Barely." She closed her eyes for a single second. "Then we do what humans have always done," she said. "We endure." Humanity fought for 17 straight hours. 17 hours of shifting tactics, sacrifice, and relentless adaptation. Every time the swarm learned, humans changed. Every time humans bled, they fought harder. Finally, at the heart of the Vorkel mass, something shattered. The unified core, forced together by fear, collapsed under the strain. Conflicting commands flooded the network. The swarm turned inward. Ships rammed one another. Bioweapons misfired. The once perfect unity dissolved into chaos. Admiral Hale seized the moment. "All fleets," he ordered. "Full assault." And this. Humanity struck with everything they had left. When the last Vorkel vessel died, silence fell over Sol. Earth still stood. The galaxy exhaled. The line had been drawn. And it had held. The silence after the Battle of Sol was heavier than the battle itself. Across the solar system, debris fields drifted slowly, glowing with the fading heat of destruction. Broken human ships tumbled alongside the remains of organic Vorkel vessels, frozen together in orbit like a graveyard written in metal and bone. For a long moment no one spoke. Then the reports began. Solar defense grid at 63% capacity. Mercury station compromised but stable. Civilian casualties, far lower than projections. Admiral Marcus Hale closed his eyes as each update came in. Victory had never sounded so exhausted. On Earth the skies slowly cleared. Fire still burned in distant cities but the planet lived. Humanity lived. People emerged from shelters into streets lit by emergency lights and the glow of the stars. Strangers embraced. Some laughed. Some cried. Many simply looked up, silent, trying to understand that they had survived the end of everything. President Amina Rahman addressed the world less than an hour later. Her voice carried across every screen, every shelter, every ship. "We did not win because we were stronger," she said. "We won because we stood together. We adapted. We refused to surrender our future." She paused, letting the words settle. "This war is not over. But today humanity endures." Across the galaxy, reactions ranged from awe to terror. In the shattered halls of the Galactic Concord, surviving delegates gathered again. Where once there had been arrogance, now there was humility. Where once humanity had been ignored, now every eye turned toward Earth. Archon Viral stood slowly, leaning on a ceremonial staff that had once symbolized dominion. "The Vorkel are broken," he said. "Their central intelligence destroyed. But fragments remain. Rogue fleets. Dormant bioforges. Shine's dim light pulsed. The galaxy is wounded. Many worlds will not recover without aid." All eyes turned to the human representative. Elena Cross stepped forward. "We will help," she said. "Not as conquerors. Not as rulers." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Then as what?" a delegate asked. Elena met their gazes one by one. "As partners. Or not at all." Human fleets did not occupy former Concord territory. Instead, they escorted refugees, reopened trade routes, and hunted remaining Vorkel fragments with surgical precision. Where elder species had relied on rigid doctrine, humans used decentralized command. Local commanders were given freedom to act, adapt, and improvise. It unnerved alien allies, but it worked. On the shattered Luminari worlds, human engineers worked alongside surviving light forms, constructing artificial stars to stabilize what remained. On Karth remnants, human diplomats mediated internal conflicts that threatened to tear the species apart after their defeat. The galaxy began to change. Not under human rule, but under human influence. Still, not everyone was grateful. In the shadows of ruined systems, whispers spread. "Humanity let this happen," some claimed. "They waited," others said. "They wanted us to fall." Those whispers reached Earth. President Rahman summoned Elena Cross and Admiral Hale to a private meeting. "They're afraid of us," Rahman said plainly. "And fear turns into resentment." Hale nodded. "It always does." Elena folded her hands. "Then we don't hide what we are anymore. We show them." "What does that mean?" Rahman asked. Elena's eyes were steady. "It means transparency. Shared technology. Shared defense planning. No secrets that could turn into myths." Hale raised an eyebrow. "You want to show them everything?" "Enough," Elena replied. "So they understand one thing. And that is that humanity doesn't seek domination. But we will respond to threats." The next session of the Galactic Concord was unlike any before. Human strategists presented battle recordings, tactical simulations, and even failures. Moments where humanity had nearly lost. They explained their decentralized command philosophy, their reliance on adaptability over raw power, their long history of surviving internal collapse. Alien minds struggled to comprehend it. "You plan for your own mistakes," Shaheen said in awe. "We assume we're flawed," Elena replied. "So we build systems that survive failure." The realization struck deep. The Vorkel had failed because it sought perfect unity. The Concord had failed because it sought static perfection. Humanity thrived because it embraced chaos, and mastered it. Far from Sol, in a dark system untouched by the war, a damaged Vorkel fragment drifted silently. Within it, a dying intelligence observed the galaxy's changes. It did not feel rage. It felt fear. Because it finally understood what it had challenged. Not a fragile species, but an apex survivor. The war had changed the balance of power forever. And the galaxy knew one truth now, burned into history. Humanity did not need to rule the stars. The stars would adjust around them. The war was over. But peace, humanity knew, was only another battlefield, quieter, slower, and often more dangerous. As human fleets withdrew from frontline patrols, historians, analysts, and alien scholars began to dig through records once thought irrelevant. They searched for patterns, origins, explanations. One question echoed across 100 worlds. How did humanity do it? The answer unsettled everyone who found it. In the deep archives of the Galactic Concord, newly opened under human insistence, xenohistorians compared human history with those of elder species. At first glance, humanity seemed chaotic. Constant wars, ideological schisms, collapses, and reinventions. But beneath the noise, a pattern emerged. Human civilizations fell often, and rose stronger every time. Dr. Talaris Venn, a Karth historian, presented the findings to the council. His voice trembled, not with fear but awe. Other species optimized for stability, he said. They removed internal threats, eliminated dissent, achieved harmony. He gestured to a projection of human history. Humans did the opposite. Images flashed, empires rising and falling, revolutions, scientific leaps born from desperation, alliances forged after devastation. They weaponized failure, Venn continued. Every collapse became data. Every loss a lesson. The chamber was silent. Shine's light pulsed slowly. You are saying their violence was preparation? Yes, Venn replied. Unintentional at first, but eventually deliberate. The truth went deeper. Human military doctrines showed something no other species had ever recorded: planned defeat scenarios. Entire branches of strategy existed solely to imagine how humanity could lose, and what to do when it happened. Admiral Marcus Hale explained it plainly during a joint briefing. We assume the enemy is smarter than us, he said. Stronger than us. Already inside our systems. If we don't plan for that, we deserve to lose. Alien commanders struggled with the concept. You expect betrayal? One asked. Hale nodded. From enemies. From allies. From ourselves. That mindset had shaped everything: technology, politics, culture. Even human artificial intelligence was different. Unlike Concord AI, which sought optimal solutions, human AI was designed to argue. Competing models constantly challenged one another, simulating internal conflict to stress-test outcomes. They fight like we do, said Dr. Yarachin. And because of that, they don't break when reality disagrees with them. In hidden human vaults, deeper truths were revealed. Humanity had detected the Vorkel centuries earlier, faint signals at the edge of the observable universe. They had not known what it was, only that something ancient and adaptive was coming. So they prepared. Not with a single superweapon but with philosophies: redundancy, decentralization, cultural resilience. Earth was not one civilization. It was many, interwoven, competing, cooperating. And that made it almost impossible to destroy. President Amina Rahman addressed the Concord one final time. You believed we were restrained by morality, she said. By compassion. By fear of war. She paused. The truth is, we are restrained by choice. The room felt colder. We know exactly what we are capable of, Rahman continued. That is why we set limits. The realization sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Humanity had not unleashed its full potential. It had managed it. Fear spread, not of human aggression but of human patience. In private chambers, elder species debated contingency plans. What if they turn on us? One whispered. Shine answered softly, they already know how. That is why they won't, unless forced. Meanwhile, beyond known space, the last Vorkel fragment drifted into darkness. Its damaged consciousness replayed memories of the war. It understood now why it had failed. It had faced a species that treated survival as an art form. A species that evolved not through peace, but through constant pressure. Its final thought was not hatred. It was recognition. We were never the apex. Back on Earth, life continued. Children went to school beneath repaired skies. Cities rebuilt stronger than before. Scientists argued. Politicians disagreed. Artists created. Humanity returned to being human. But the galaxy would never see them the same way again. They were no longer the youngest species. They were the most experienced in one thing that truly mattered: endurance. And the final truth, written quietly into every alien record, was this: humanity was not dangerous because it sought war. Humanity was dangerous because it had survived everything else. And learned from it. Decades passed. For the galaxy, time healed slowly. Stars could be reignited, trade routes rebuilt, and populations relocated, but trust took far longer. And trust now revolved around one name: humanity. The Galactic Concord still existed, but it was no longer ruled by the oldest or the strongest. It was guided by those who had proven they could adapt when the universe turned hostile. Humans did not sit on a throne. They sat at the center. Not as masters but as anchors. Human observers were embedded in every major fleet. Human advisors assisted planetary defenses. Human engineers redesigned hyperspace infrastructure to detect threats before they crossed into inhabited space. They never demanded tribute. They never claimed territory. That frightened the elders more than conquest ever could. A new civilization rose from the Perseus Reach, young, ambitious, and aggressive. The Zyran ascendancy had mastered plasma geometry and believed dominance was proof of worth. When they encountered former Vorkel ruins and broken Concord worlds, they misread the scars. This galaxy is weak, declared Zyran High Marshal Crothuan. It has been softened by peace. Their fleets crossed borders without permission. Outposts were seized. Minor species were subjugated. The Concord warned them. You do not understand the balance you are testing, Archon Viral said during the emergency session. Crothuan laughed, mandibles clacking. We fear no ancient ghosts. Then he noticed the human delegates. Small. Silent. Watching. What role does the soft species play? Crothuan asked mockingly. Elena Cross, older now, hair streaked with gray, met his gaze. We observe, she said. Until observation is no longer enough. The Zyran ignored the warning. Their fleets advanced toward a protected trade corridor, one quietly marked under human strategic oversight. The response was not immediate. Humanity watched. They analyzed Zyran command structure, logistics, psychology. They mapped how pride influenced decisions, how aggression masked insecurity. When the Zyran fleet crossed the final boundary, Admiral Marcus Hale, now long retired, watching from Earth, smiled faintly. They've crossed it, he murmured. Across the galaxy, human fleets did not mobilize en masse. Instead, systems went dark. Navigation data shifted subtly. Supply routes failed. Zyran ships began missing rendezvous points by fractions of a second, enough to cause chaos. Then the first battle happened. A single human task group intercepted a Zyran strike force twice its size. The Zyran expected brute resistance. They found silence. Human ships never stayed visible long enough to be targeted. Weapons fired from impossible angles. Drones rewrote battlefield conditions in real time. Within minutes, the Zyran force surrendered. The High Marshal demanded explanation. This is dishonorable warfare. Crothuan roared across open channels. A human captain replied calmly. This is survival. The conflict ended in days, not years. Zyran command collapsed under internal contradiction, their rigid hierarchy unable to cope with decentralized pressure. When the Concord reconvened, the Zyran stood defeated, but alive. Elena Cross addressed them one final time. You were not defeated because you were weak, she said. You were defeated because you believed strength meant dominance. She gestured to the assembled species. This galaxy is not ruled by power. It is protected by restraint. Crothuan lowered his head. What are you? He asked quietly. Elena answered with no pride, no threat. We are the last line you should ever cross. The galaxy listened. From that day forward, new starfaring species were taught a single lesson early in their ascent. Humanity was not the first to arrive. Not the oldest. Not the largest. But when the void sent its monsters, when ancient horrors returned, when arrogance threatened balance, humanity stood. They were not heroes. They were not gods. They were survivors who had learned how to make survival contagious. And so the warning spread, etched into treaties, whispered in academies, carved into the memory of the stars themselves. Do not mistake humanity's silence for weakness. Do not mistake their mercy for fear. Because when every other line fails, when diplomacy breaks, when fleets fall, when empires burn, humanity is the last line the galaxy should have crossed. And once crossed, there is no return.